Hello, everyone, and welcome to Co-Creation Station, the podcast where we talk about spiritual magic, the law of attraction, the mind-body-spirit connection, and how to best enjoy this mystical, miraculous, mysterious, crazy, sometimes confounding, but always incredible journey we call life. My name is Collin. I'm a musician, tarot oracle card reader, and teacher.
My name is Stephanie, and I'm a transformational life coach.
And we want to thank you so much for listening to the podcast in the audio version on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And thank you also if you are watching us on YouTube on the Co-Creation Station YouTube channel. If you feel inspired to give us a review, like the video, subscribe to us on the podcast or the YouTube channel, it would help us a lot, and we would be extremely grateful to you. Each week we have a different starting point for our discussion. I think that's what we're now.
Oh, good one. I like that
too. And today we have our first guest of season 2, Dr. Collin Worster, who happens to be a blood relative of mine. She's my very awesome and wonderful sister.
And
Welcome,
a soul
Kelly.
sister of mine.
Indeed.
Also
Thank
your
you.
soul sister.
Yay, we're so happy you're here. I didn't even think about it. Season 2, episode 1. How freaking cool is this?
Yeah,
extra special.
I want to say congratulations on a successful first season and for a successful second season launch of Co-Creation Station.
Thank you.
So that's so awesome.
Thank you. You're absolutely right. Season 2, episode 2. My bad. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly. Yeah, Stephanie and I were talking this week between the shows about how grateful we are that this thing organically just sort of happened. We started, because of COVID, we started having our friend time on Zoom every Sunday, and then we were having these sorts of conversations about the law of attraction, art of allowing, mind, body, spirit connection, and we're like, we should just record this.
So good.
Yeah, so welcome to the show. We're super glad to have you on. We appreciate you've listened to, I think, all of the episodes at this point.
Oh, yes.
And we really appreciate
it. The 2-week break was difficult.
What's that?
The 2-week break was difficult. I did not like that. Very difficult.
We're sorry about that. We just
We're not. We
really.
Needed it.
It was so nice to sleep in on Sundays. But we really appreciate. I just wanted to say thank you for your awesome feedback, because it's been very helpful to us here on the podcast. So
you've been amazing. Great support. Thank you, Kelly. Dr. Kelly.
So you are a chiropractor by trade today, but you also have a lot of wisdom, knowledge, experience about healing and how to lead a happy life in general. So I think we'll just give you the floor and have you tell everybody like how you got into chiropractic first, because that's an interesting story, and then we'll jump off from there.
Okay. I became a chiropractor because I was a chiropractic patient first, and my best friend from junior high school, who we're best friends to this day, she had started going to a chiropractor in Boston, and she's the kind of person that she doesn't do anything without thorough research. She knows every in and out of everything before she even dips her toe in. And she really liked this chiropractic stuff. And she went to a chiropractor in Boston. And then I had 3 weeks of migraines in a row. And she said, why don't you try chiropractic? I really like it. And she got her chiropractor to refer me to a chiropractor up here. And it changed my life. And
what year was that?
That was August 20th, 1998.
Wow.
And it just, the 2 chiropractors that I had in that office were just extraordinary, and taught me everything they knew, and I was a sponge. I loved it. And it wasn't for another couple of years before I decided to go to chiropractic school myself. But what I witnessed in overhearing discussions of their patients in the waiting room, and also my discussions with them, really opened my eyes to what health is really all about. And it was completely different than what I thought it was. And
what did you think it was? And then what did you learn from them in your experience?
I thought it was a roll of the dice. At the time I was 27. I thought it was a roll of the dice. You know, some people got good help, some people got bad help, and you just had to hope you were in the good help category, and there wasn't much you could do about it. The hand you were dealt was the hand you were dealt. And
I don't think you were alone in that thinking either, right? I think a lot of people think that way about their health.
Yeah, and that health also comes from a bottle. Like I was on a lot of medications, and that if you didn't take this medication, you weren't going to be healthy. And so that was also part of the paradigm that I was in at the time. The most profound and life-changing conversation I overheard in the waiting room was one of a woman, and she's about my age now, but she was talking about how she went to her doctor because she was feeling strange. She went to her primary care and found out that she was able to go off of her antidepressant medication. And the only thing she had done differently was start chiropractic care. And she didn't understand how that worked. And she says, and so she was talking to her friend in the waiting room, like, I don't get it. It's freaky, but this happened and I'm off my antidepressant medication and I feel awesome.
I've never heard anyone say that before. That's amazing.
Yeah. And I want to say, don't do that.
Yeah, right. Thank you.
Without medical supervision.
Never do anything without medical supervision. Like,
please do not. It is very dangerous. But I sat there and I thought, it's February, and I'm 6 months into my care, and I had seasonal affective disorder, like to such an extent where in Maine we don't get a lot of the sunlight that the rest of the world gets. And I was on antidepressants for years. I mean, I was 27. I'd already been on antidepressants for some time. And, but I still struggled with it a lot, especially November through March. And I was like, it's February. I have had the best winter. I haven't struggled at all with depression. So I went in and talked to, Dr. Jim, what's going on? Why did she say that? Why am I experiencing that? And he told me the truth. And I, under the close medical supervision of my primary care doctor, I also went off antidepressants. And I was at the time I was getting my master's in social work at the University of New England. And since I had started college at the age of 18, I had fully planned on becoming a licensed clinical social worker. Actually, I was planning on becoming a psychologist doctor. And I was getting in my second class at University of New England. And I was just like, you know what, I can do this, talk therapy and cognitive therapy, things like this with people, or I could actually start at the physiological level. There were misalignments in my neck and spine that from accidents.
I just want to interrupt you real quick, Kelly, and have you explain to people, because Dr. Chris talked about this a little bit on the episode in season 1 on holistic chiropractic, which I highly recommend you watch or listen to if you haven't. But can you talk a little bit about what you mean by that? So how does, aligning your spine with chiropractic care, what does that have to do with things like mental illness? How does that help?
Yeah. So one of the things that on that podcast, Dr. Chris Brew talked about she was brilliant at, was talked about how pressure on the nerve system. So let's start at the beginning. The nerve system controls everything in your physiology, from organs to muscles. People think just muscles. It controls everything. Every physiological process in your body is controlled by the nerve system. Your nerve system starts with your brain and spinal cord, and it exits your spinal cord to the rest of your body. So if there are misalignments, distortions, interferences in the spine, in your structures, and they're putting pressure on the nerve system doesn't work as well as it could.
And when you talk about the nerve system, we're talking about a whole bunch of stuff, more than we could ever discuss. But essentially what I understand it to be is messages coming from your brain to your various organs, limbs, muscles, saying, do this, do this, do this. And when there's pressure on the spinal column, pinching off nerves, essentially, you have messages that either aren't getting received or they're getting sent to the wrong place, or they're, so is that basically how it works?
Yeah, or this what a lot of chiropractors refer to it as static on the line. The message can't get clearly through.
Right.
It's muffled, or getting intermittent messages, and the body's confused. So that's really how it works, and it affects our body function, it affects our brain function and brain chemistry, and it affects our thoughts and our feelings. And it's also been said in many books that they believe that the nerve system is the spiritual connection.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. The network goes beyond the physical. So because I was under chiropractic care and getting the pressure taken off my nerve system that had been there for quite some time, my nerve system was able to work better, and therefore my brain chemistry had changed.
And essentially, and again, please correct me if I'm wrong, but this is stuff that I've learned a lot from you and a little bit from Dr. Chris last season. But if I have a misaligned spine and part of my nervous system is pinched off or impeded, and these messages aren't getting there, that means I can get ailments, right, that are coming from the fact that my nerves aren't carrying the messages correctly, and I will just manifest it as like symptoms, and it just seems random, like, oh, I guess I have like you say, I have bad health and now I have a bad knee or whatever. But that could actually be like a misalignment in the spine.
Yes, indeed. Yep, that's true. And I'm not inferring that everyone that's on antidepressants can get off of them.
Right.
There are definitely, it depends on what's causing what's causing the malfunction, because there are other things that can cause malfunction besides spinal misalignment and postural distortion. And
so the other thing that, again, not to keep bringing Dr. Chris up, but I think she discussed this, but I think it's helpful for people to hear it again, even if they heard it before, which is that like even a normal healthy adult, for the most part, like just say living in the United States, having grown up, like let's say they're 35 years old today, the chances are that just going through life without really any attention whatsoever on spinal health, unless you are, like a professional athlete or something who's getting regular, or, somehow you're getting regular chiropractic care from birth. But most people, if you've never been to a chiropractor and you make it to age 35, what has happened is the various things of life, the way our society has you move around, the way most people move around, your spine is likely to be misaligned, meaning you're likely to have nerves that are doing this sort of, static on the line, or, sending the wrong message to the wrong place kind of thing.
It's likely, and it depends on, like, I remember in another episode, Collin, you talked about the staircase in the home that we grew up in. And I fell down those stairs too. And I know that fall, I think I was probably 6 or 7. Injuries have a lot to do with it.
So people might have a car accident and they might have a headache for a couple of days, but it goes away and they think they're fine. Right. But they might have had a spinal misalignment occur that they don't even know about.
Oh,
and then
for sure, in a car accident.
6 months down the line, something happens to their liver, and again, it seems like it came out of nowhere, but it could be related to. It could be a number of reasons, but one of them could be a spinal misalignment that occurred as a result of the accident. Do you get?
And
oh, sorry. Well, I was just gonna say, like, I think it's getting better. I think there's more knowledge about holistic chiropractic care out there in the world, so I'm having to explain this less often.
Health insurance is actually covering it now, which is wonderful.
Yeah, but I do still have conversations with people where they don't know anything about chiropractic really, and their only knowledge is like, oh, like sometimes if you have a car accident and you have problems with and you have back pain, you go to a chiropractor for like 6 weeks and they fix that part and then you leave. And that's what I thought before you got involved in chiropractic. And so I just, if you can, just explain like what's going on there? Like, why do people think that, and why is what you do so different?
Because I have so much to say. Because where to start? The most common, and I'm doing this in quotes for those of you who, like me, who usually listen in the car, not seeing the podcast. I forgot what I was quoting now.
Most people
For
about
those of you who have had chiropractic care, the most common side effect, is the relief of pain. That is actually a side effect of what chiropractic does. So what chiropractic really does is it takes pressure off the nerve system and physiology, and it restores communication throughout the nerve system. And as a result, some people, I've seen the gamut. Some people get right off the table and they're pain-free, and oh my gosh, this is the best thing that's ever happened. Wow. And I also have patients who come in for several weeks and then see the results. And I also have patients who don't get full, 100% symptom relief. In those cases, that's like referring out and doing congruent care with other practitioners to help this person. But basically, the very first chiropractic patient was actually a deaf man. And by adjusting the spine, his hearing was restored in one adjustment. I mean, it's really extraordinary, but that's how chiropractic was discovered. And it was like, why is something physiological restored from correcting the spine? And so that's how chiropractic was discovered and developed, essentially. So that's why people associate it mostly with pain relief, and you can get pain relief fairly early in care. And some people, some of my patients, that's what their care is. So you can decide after you're symptom free to just come every 6 months or every 5 years. It's entirely up to you. Or
what's the danger? Yeah, I just want to say, like, what's the potential danger? I mean, everybody's different, and again, people need to consult their own medical professionals and everything. We're not trying to write a prescription for everyone on the planet here, but from your perspective, from your experience being a chiropractor, what's the potential downside of, I had a car accident, I have some back pain, I come see you for 6 weeks, in 6 weeks the pain's gone, so I stop coming forever? Like, what am I missing out on?
I'd like to take it from the other side of it, which is you're always better off with an aligned spine. I think, I can say all of these things that I've seen over the years, all of these ailments, or after that car accident, a year later, I was never the same, and all that. But it makes sense if you understand the mechanism of chiropractic care that you're better off with an aligned spine and a balanced body and healthy communication throughout your nerve system.
I agree. I agree.
If you get that, and that's something that you want, and you have the right chiropractor for you, because I'm telling you, the chiropractors are as different as how they look. I mean, every chiropractor is different. No chiropractic treatment is the same. And also,
I've been with 3, and the third one was I've been with her for 10 years, and very different than the first 2. And so, and I think that's probably why so many people have even different opinions about chiropractic care, because there are a lot out there, and not all of them have integrity, or, and so, just like in any field.
And not all of them are a good fit.
Exactly.
I see a lot of,
right.
I'm always so impressed with how many people keep looking. Sometimes I'm like some people's 8th, 10th chiropractor.
Really? Wow.
I'm like, good for you, man. Good for you. Keep looking. Like, I wanted it, but I didn't want, the style or the approach and all that. And the other thing that I really want to say is it's more than about physical injury. It is so much more than that.
Tell us about that.
I would say, and one of my many chiropractors I've been to over the years, Dr. Pete Gay out of Kennebunk, Maine, he said to me before I don't even think I was going to be a chiropractor at that point. He said, Kelly, 90% of what I see in here is not physical injury. It's emotional and mental stress.
Whoa.
And I just took that nugget and I just put it back here. And I am so glad he told me that, because people come in all day, every day. I don't know what I did. I don't know what I did. I don't know what I did. Mm. And it sometimes has nothing to do with what they did. It's what happened. Yeah. Or it's how they interpreted what happened.
So are you talking about, I just want to get some clarity on that. Are you talking about sort of early life trauma? Are you talking about just working at a stressful job for 3 years and staying in the same, non-ergonomically oriented chair, or all of that is?
Yes.
So those are all possibilities.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing and wonderful that, when we talk to different guests who have different specialties, when you said, it's just always a good idea to have an aligned spine. I feel like that's how most practitioners, no matter what their field is, would say. Like, I think yoga practitioners would tell me, it's always a good idea to have a flexible body. That will always help you in a whole bunch of different ways,
Yep.
I'm trying to think of some of the other guests we've had, but it's sort of like that sort of thing of like, whatever I work on, like, it's good to have it. And this is the thing, like when we get our car repaired, if the mechanic finds something else, we don't say, oh, don't fix it. I mean, typically we don't say, oh, don't fix that. I'll just ride around with that. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I'm glad you found that, because that probably could have cost me, more money, but also like I could have broken down on the highway or something. So please fix that. Please fix everything so that everything in my car is running properly. And yet it feels like with our bodies, our minds, our spirits, our culture kind of has this idea of like, no, just when something goes really wrong, fix that. If you find something else, ignore it until something really bad happens with that.
Right.
Or we're so disassociated from our bodies and our minds and our thoughts and emotions that we don't even realize the connection between our thoughts and our emotions and our bodies.
Yeah,
exactly. And part of that, frankly, is that the nerve system has been dumbed down. It's almost like chiropractors use this analogy all the time, like a dimmer switch. If we could notice from the time we were born until the age we're 20, how much that dimmer switch has been turned down, we would be alarmed. But it happened gradually, so we don't know what we don't feel.
Is a car accident is easy. Like if I have a bad car accident, and then I have shoulder pain, like it's very easy for me to understand, like I had an event, it caused this, I need to go get it addressed. But like you're saying, if I just had a stressful job for 10 years and sat wrong in my chair, like that, I'm going to be mystified when the symptoms of that finally occur, but it's actually been going on for a long time.
Even relationships, right? Like if we were in a dysfunctional family and we were yelled at a lot or ignored, or there was a lot of rage or whatever, all of that affects our emotions, which affects, our alignment and everything else, right? And all that stuff stays trapped in our bodies, right? And so we get older and compound it with, I got an argument with my husband, or my neighbor yelled at me, or someone raged at me whatever it is, all of that it's like layers and layers, right? And so, and do you think that's sometimes where disease also comes from, all of these different ailments? And
yeah, of course. And you've said it before several times on this podcast, dis-ease.
Yeah,
it's not spelled that way by accident.
Dis-ease, yeah.
And I also, in my practice, I don't pretend to be a therapist. I was in mental health for several years prior to being a chiropractor. So it's sort of like being a good listener and giving feedback is sort of in my DNA. But, sometimes I'm adjusting someone, 2 or 3 times over, a week or two, something, they come in with an injury. They don't know what's going on. This is happening, and they're really hurting. And I adjust them, and nothing's getting better. And so I close the door and I say, "What's going on?" And they burst into tears. It's like that, and they may not even know until I look at them and just really connect and say, "What's happening in your life?" Are you all right? And it cuts through all the crap, that the world has piled on to tell them you can't feel this way, or you couldn't possibly be having so much pain from a mental stress. I don't think we know that. I don't think enough people understand the impact of emotional stress, and that's that's really a really important part of being a body worker, I think.
I think one of the important things too, and I'm glad to see this is starting to happen, but I can understand if people, when they get into, things other than just going to your MD, which again, we recommend you continue to see your MD regularly. Like,
yes.
However,
we all have one here.
Yes, we all have one. But, it can be overwhelming once you start to learn about, chiropractic, aromatherapy, all these different, what's the one with the needles? I don't know why I can't think of it.
Acupuncture.
Yep. All sorts of EMDR, all these sorts of different therapies that are, designed to help heal your body, heal your mind. It can be overwhelming because there's so many different fields, number one, and there's so many people that are so excited and so passionate about all the different fields that there's a lot of, there's a lot of sort of noise. It's good noise, but there's a lot of noise to sort of cut through. And I think what we're coming to an understanding of is that we need a holistic approach, which is you need to understand that if you're having challenges in any of these areas, that it could be caused by any number of things. And so, all of these therapies can help. It doesn't mean you have to do all of them. It doesn't mean you have to do all of them all the time. But it also doesn't mean that, you should just pick your favorite and just do that, because there can be like, if I do acupuncture and it works great for me, that's wonderful. But there could still be spinal misalignments that are still causing me issues that, acupuncture may, I'm just pulling that out as an example. It may heal things in me, that acupuncture is good at healing, but it, can't heal a spinal misalignment, for example. So I think one thing that's good is like we're starting to understand that like it's not really like you have to learn all these different things and use all of them all the time, but it's really good. That's one of the things we're hoping to do with the podcast is just broaden awareness of them, that this is all related to just enjoying your life. This is all just like really just being able to enjoy your precious time on this planet in this human experience
in a healthy way.
Yeah.
Mind, body, and soul.
Right. Yeah. And I would say to that, I mean, I agree. And also to prevent overwhelm, just trust the process. Some people, they start at my office, but they end up, also doing acupuncture, also doing massage, also doing yoga. It's like, just trust the path. If you're, go where you're led first and see what happens.
Yeah.
Because chiropractic doesn't do what acupuncture does, and yoga doesn't do what chiropractic does, and chiropractic doesn't do what yoga does. And, so it's important that you just, trust the process and don't stress out about that too.
The other thing too is that, I mean, you mentioned this briefly, but I think, some people's resistance, especially, if it's a financial question, you're like, well, okay, well now I understand that chiropractic is like my whole life. I want to have, a good spine, so I may need to see a chiropractor throughout my whole life. Well, I don't want to go to a chiropractor every week, and I don't know if my insurance, blah, blah, blah. But like, my experience has been that if I have some sort of traumatic event physically, then I may need to go back to like once a week. But once my spine is in alignment, it tends to, so I guess what I'm saying is like, I think I was a somewhat typical example when I came to you, Kelly, and you started working with me years ago, which is that my spine was really messed up, right? It was like really misaligned. And so first there's this process of aligning the spine, but that usually needs to take a while because you can't just take a really misaligned spine and just hammer it right into shape and have it stay that way. Like that would be too traumatic. I think I'm right on that.
I'd be a lot wealthier if that were the case.
So, it's a process, and everybody maybe takes different time because people have different levels of misalignments, right? And then, but the thing is, and then even once you get the spine aligned, like the challenge is that if you've lived for 30, 40, 50 years with your spine misaligned, even once we get it aligned, it's not going to stay that way on its own. You need to keep coaxing it back on a regular basis so that it learns to find alignment as like the normal position. Am I saying that?
Well, there is a retraining phase of chiropractic care when you first go in, depending on the chiropractor and depending on the situation, and everybody's physiology is different. But in general, there is a retraining phase where there's, I guess it speaks for itself, and then it is there are other phases of care, but generally it really depends on you, your lifestyle. I just had a patient who she quit her job because she knew it was so stressful. And now that she's not working at that very stressful job, she doesn't need to be adjusted once a week anymore. Wow. She's coming in once a month and she's great. And we're thinking she might be able to spread out her visits even more. It really depends on lifestyle. Like for me, I bend over tables all day. I get adjusted once and sometimes twice a week because it's very difficult. It's hard on my spine. Yeah. So it really depends on the person. But yes, in general, in the beginning, there is a training phase, and adjustments can be more frequent at that point.
I do every 2 weeks, no matter what. And because of the emotional stuff, and sometimes I'm going through more stress than others. I was walking down around the block the other day and I tripped on a little curb piece. And I thought, freak, because I had just gotten aligned the day before. And I was like, darn it. Because I know just little things like that, bumping into a door or whatever, it kind of messes up the body a little bit. And that kind of stuff happens all the time.
But also know that something the body does all day, every day, is align its own spine.
It's amazing what our body does.
What we find, what chiropractors find, are the segments that the body is having a difficult time integrating, unable to align on its own. But that's why stretching and movement are so important, because it's part of your body's mechanism of doing this, of its own regulating.
So because sometimes I'll stretch and I'll hear it go, and my spine, and I'm like, oh, yeah. Dr. Kelly, what would you like for people to know? Like, what, being a chiropractor all these years, what do you feel would benefit people the most? What can they do for themselves, along with getting regular adjustments if they wanted to?
I mean, I guess that's why I'm here. I think that the work of the art of allowing and the law of attraction, I'd say it goes a long way, but it goes all the way. It makes a big difference in physical health and mental health. I know for me, it boosts immunity. It boosts your, physiology.
So our thoughts, which create our emotions. And so really being mindful of, and even if we can't pay attention to our thoughts, just paying attention to how I'm feeling then. And doing those things that I know help me feel better, stretching, physical activity. So just the cluster of all of that together.
That's one of the things I was thinking about.
Big part of staying healthy.
Sorry to interrupt you, but that's one of the things I was thinking about. Is one of the things that's been a project of mine for many years. Probably will be a lifelong effort, but is trying to retrain my subconscious mind, which was filled with a lot of negative thoughts and beliefs earlier in my life, and replace those thoughts and neural pathways with positive thoughts and self-loving thoughts and supportive thoughts. And what I was thinking is, that's going to be easier if my spine is in alignment. If my spine is not in alignment, then it's almost like I feel like it might be like, trying to climb a mountain with a big weight in your backpack instead of just trying to climb the mountain, without a weight. It's like it's going to make it harder. So these
great analogy, yeah. And I didn't even intend on talking about chiropractic that much.
I know, but we did. Well, I mean, I do want you to talk. So after you'd been a chiropractor for many years, you can tell the story of how it happened, but I just started to hear from you that you were going around, you live and work in Maine, or where we're from. And you were going around to different businesses and organizations and giving what you called the happy talk, which was a talk about the many different ways to increase the level of happiness in your life. So how did you were you just a chiropractor and then you came up with that?
That was through collaboration with a mentor of mine, Dr. Abby Power, and learning more. I had just come out of school at that point, and I learned from her about how taking pressure off the nerve system allows your brain chemistry and body chemistry to work better, and how having a misaligned spine and pressure on the nerve system can cause dysfunction in the way of, thoughts and feelings, etc. So yeah, that was a great talk. I'd forgotten all about that, but that was,
I love the title.
Fun. Yeah.
So can you give us a high level of like what was in that talk in terms of, was it sort of advice like these things will help you kind of thing?
There are several things that you can do to change your physiology to increase neurotransmitters, different foods you can eat. I had food and movement. It's so important because it helps keep your brain chemistry really healthy. And also talked a lot about the chiropractic care aspect of it, making sure that your spine's aligned and balanced. So that was I'm having trouble remembering a lot of that talk, but yeah, that was a big part of it, was foods and physical activity and smooth movement of your joints and spine.
Because I think we think that, I mean, obviously to me, there's a definite part to happiness, which is my ingrained, this is why I work on it, is the subconscious negative thoughts and beliefs that just pop up without my permission kind of. And so retraining my brain with affirmations or guided meditations or any of those sorts of things is helpful. But I think it's tempting to think that like, well, if they're my thoughts, then that's the only way to work on happiness is just, my brain, like, reciting affirmations all day. But I think what was fascinating to me about your talk is like, oh, but this is all part, like you can do that, but it's just like what we've been talking before. If you're doing positive affirmations all day, but your spine is misaligned, you can't stretch your muscles, like your diet is off, it's not healthy.
Or you're at a job that you don't enjoy,
you're at a job
or
that you
you're...
hate, like, all the affirmations in the world may not, they may help. I mean, usually when we do anything for self-care, it has some impact, but we may not be aware that it's, again, it's sort of like climbing the mountain with the big weight in our back. It's not having the impact that we really want, partly because we're not looking at holistic happiness. We're looking at like one aspect of it, which is the mental aspect of it.
Yep. Yeah. And, Stephanie, I started working with you. I became a client on March 1st, 2020. And
thank you. I loved it.
And I mean, think about, we don't have to think long and hard about what was going on at that time. And I love that we talked about the pandemic for a total of 2 minutes. And in all of those sessions. I mean, we began on March 1st, 2020, and we went for a year. And we talked about it for one session for like 2 minutes, literally. And I remember what happened. In that my session with Stephanie was later in the day, and something had just happened that was extremely difficult, and I was struggling. I was like, and as far as from a law of attraction standpoint, I'm like, what did I do? Like, where'd this come from? And I remember, Stephanie, you said, tell me about your day. Like, how did your day start? What did you do? And what I did was I went to the grocery store, and back then, the grocery store was the most terrifying place on the planet for a lot of us, including me. Yeah. And I was in anxiety, fear, literally shaking in the aisle.
So in case no one realized, this was like the beginning of COVID, like when it really
the very
was
beginning.
Like okay.
And so that's what had happened earlier. So that's where it came from. It was in my field, and I was bringing in this negativity and angst and
fear.
And so when I made that connection, so that's why we talked about it. And then we were like, ping, done talking about that. Um, and so that's why it's so important. And one of the things, I mean, your immune system, your health, the health of your body is about so much more than, yes, in this pandemic, masks, vaccines, face shields, et cetera, have been important in slowing the spread. But what's really important is not to be in a public place where you're exposed, freaked out, and full of angst. I mean, that takes your immune system and it just dumbs it right down.
Stress
and
is so hard on our immune system.
Stress, it takes it right away. And so what you said to me, Stephanie, in that session was, next time you go in a grocery store, think, I am protected, I am safe, I am strong, I am healthy. And I'm like, why didn't I think of that? But that's part of it too. And there may be circumstances out of our control, but there are things well within our control too. Yes. And that's where I would argue that's the most important part of health is in here, the thoughts and what we bring in to our lives with that. Yeah.
And that's partly why I named my business Power in Joy, because there is so much power in what you just said, that we have more power than we realize. And a lot of times we feel victim, or we don't have control, or I'm powerless over this. And it's like helping people get in touch with their true power, their innate power. All of this is within ourselves. And we're just so disconnected from it, or only because we weren't taught it from a young age, or this isn't taught in schools, right. Our parents don't know it, et cetera, et cetera. And so, connecting people to that there's power in that. And then from that place, I mean, from when you came to me in March and then we ended our work a year later, night and day, like just like this amazing, you connected to your true self. And then you've been able to share that with everyone that you touch, which is fabulous. And that is why Collin and I do this, because we want more and more people living from that place of just being in touch with who they really are. We're amazing beings, and we don't even know. Like, we're so attached to all this material stuff, which is wonderful. But, we were talking about the mind and the body and the spirit and the emotions, and all that stuff it's interconnected. And when we're living from that place, life gets really, really good, and our health increases.
Yes, true. And so many people think, I'm glad you mentioned that. So many people think, about The Secret when they think about the law of attraction, and they think, oh, when I want a luxury car or an apartment with an ocean view, that's where I'll go. But it isn't. I mean, for me, it was about integrating it into my daily life and living the life of my dreams. And I have those things now. And so this podcast, I know I've heard you say a couple of times in the first season, we've talked about this before, and you kind of apologetic for it, but don't be, because we need to hear this. We need to hear it more than once a week, but this once a week thing is like my lifeline, hearing this stuff and how to incorporate it into daily life about regular things, about eating breakfast or going for a walk or whatever, manifesting what you want, allowing
interacting with our family and our friends and our neighbors and our clients and coworkers, boss, everything. It affects everything.
Yeah. And it creates such a rich life.
Yeah. I think people don't, or some people don't really get the depth and breadth of, how, it's easy to pick on the media. I always bristle at that, because I feel like the media is like a billion different organizations and people, and like lumping them into one thing is kind of a gross oversimplification. But it is true that, I think as I've read more and more research about the human brain and doing this podcast, that things like, there's a bunch of them, but the things like the spotlight effect, the negative thinking bias, the ways that our brain was set up long ago in evolution to kind of look for problems to solve, look for things that are off to put in order, that part of our brain can help us. But more often than not in modern society, it goes and finds problems uh, where they're not really problems, and it blows them into problems so that we can solve them, because that's sort of what the brain was designed to do. You know, it's like I forget what I think I might have been leaving you a voicemail, Stephanie, the other day. I was like, there was something with an Excel spreadsheet or something, and I realized that I was in fight, flight, or freeze, and I was working on an Excel spreadsheet. I was just so I sort of clicked out of the anger and frustration and everything, and I just sort of realized, like, look, I am a person who has adequate income. I live in one of the greatest countries on earth with all these opportunities. I have an amazing home. I'm safe physically. You know, I'm in good health relatively. Like, you know, I have stable income, all these things. And yet my brain has turned this Excel spreadsheet into a saber-toothed tiger that is attacking. Like, that's the level of adrenaline and stress and like ready to go that I was involved in. And I pulled back from that, and I was just like, wow, like, our brains are our friends sometimes, but sometimes they're not. And I think one of the things that's so important about like chiropractic, like the homeopathy that Samantha talked about last season, you know, the work, the Alexander technique of letting your body do what it naturally does best that Alice Olsher talked about. You know, it's to help you. Part of it is to help us when our minds, you know, are not going to help us. We've done this sort of care ahead of time.
We need to feed it what we want it
to help our brains do, you know, what we kind of need in modern society. Because the whole saber-toothed tiger thing is rare. I did see a YouTube video recently where a guy was on a hike somewhere in America, I don't remember, and he walked by a mountain lion who just had babies, and the mountain lion misinterpreted him walking past and thought that he was there to attack her babies. So she went after him, and he was fine because he knew how to like sort of intimidate and get away, whatever. And eventually the mountain lion, you know, and that was a totally scary video. But I have not been attacked by a mountain lion. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's rare, you know? Like, if you get kicked into fight, flight, or freeze when a mountain lion is coming after you, that's fine. But otherwise, you know, if you're thinking about your taxes or a coworker who has an annoying laugh or something, like, that does not rise to the level of like these, you know, everything on the line, survival things that our bodies kick us into because the brain was designed the way it was.
Well, and I would say too that a big part of why the default is with Excel spreadsheets and taxes, et cetera, why the default goes to fight, flight, or freeze is because of the chronic stress that a lot of us either grew up in or are exposed to every day.
And that's where we need to provide for ourselves and choose the better feeling thought, the better feeling activity, choose what we're going to feed it, what we're going to put our attention on, because whatever we put our attention on grows. So Dr. Kelly, what else would you like to tell? What else do you want us to know from your experience as a chiropractor and a wellness practitioner, the mind, body, and spirit? What do we need to know and to focus our attention on to increase our mental, physical, emotional health?
I don't really have anything else today. One of the things that I wanted to talk about was, you know, as far as that, you know, using the art of allowing and the law of attraction in the health aspect of physiology, you know, what we're exposed to, a lot of us, I would say most of us, at least in this country, are exposed to every day, are the messages of fight for what you want, work harder, figure things out. And that isn't actually the flow of life. It isn't actually how things work. And working with the universe and the universal laws is so much easier than fighting against them. And a lot of the messages we get every day is the fight against. And that, you know, fighting what is, I know for me in my journey with this universal law, you know, fighting what is and resisting, it took a lot of energy from my body. It gave me ill health. And working with the universal laws has increased my health, increased my immunity, and given me a great life.
That's beautiful.
Awesome. I know.
Well, thank you.
I love it.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly, for being here with us this week. It was a real pleasure to have you on. I loved the discussion we had. I loved all the different places we went with it. So thank you so much. We really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you. Have a great season 2.
Thank you.
Sure, we
Thank you
will.
for being your amazing self. Oh my God.
Thank you for being your amazing self.
Oh, thank you. The people that you touch on a daily basis, and as you further your, what you choose to do. I love what you just said, and I know you're going to go into some wonderful directions with that, and and to continue to be of service to others and bring them to their highest self and well-being in all ways. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm really glad you talked about the taxes, because the thing about the taxes sorry. I didn't want to do a total podcast, but we'll explain it some other time. All right. Well, I want to thank all of you for listening to the podcast. If you've been listening to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts, I also want to thank all of you who have been watching on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. Thank you so much. Again, if you feel motivated, spiritually
inspired,
like, subscribe, review us. Please do. It helps us a lot, and we're deeply grateful to you. And we will see you same time next week on Co-Creation Station. Have a great week, everybody.